What if I told you one of the biggest drivers of sleep apnea is a nutritional imbalance? Sounds crazy because we're told we need a CPAP and everything. But the fact of the matter is, when we look at the CPAP as a gold standard, if you give 100 people a CPAP, and this is backed up by research, only about 32% of them will find it still useful about 6 months later. And not even still useful, it's like useful at all. And at the same time, there's also people who are reporting they make some changes to their diet and like 2, 3 weeks later, snoring is gone and they're waking up refreshed. So what the heck is going on? What's been missing in this conversation about sleep apnea? That's what we're going to talk about because there's a big link between how your body metabolizes certain fuels and how you breathe. If you don't address and fix this link, then you'll just be stuck being exhausted pretty much forever. Sorry, just the honest truth. So that's why in this episode, we're going to go over sleep apnea's nutritional balance, what it is, and how it could be addressed. And of course, my disclaimer here, this is for educational purposes only. Always consult with your healthcare provider. Read this thing on the screen. This is not a replacement for standard medical care. And of course, subscribe. So, what is this imbalance? So, understanding this imbalance relies on knowing, like, okay, fundamentally, what's going on with sleep apnea. So, if it's your first time or your 13th time here, always good to cover this. So, breathing too fast at night, they found this in the 50s, causing someone to breathe too fast at night would actually collapse the airway. And this is still the same mechanism that holds true today, where airway inspiration triggers collapse of the airway, and that's regardless of what's going on. So this is very important. If you have a nose problem, it's still a inhale triggering the collapse. If you have a big tongue, it's a inhale that is triggering the collapse of the airway. Really, whatever it is, small jaw, whatever, it's still a inhale triggering the collapse of the airway. Now, this inhale becomes fast and irregular because of the narrow anatomy, just like if you were to breathe through a straw. However, then you're left with two choices. Do you want to get surgery and all that, or do you want to adjust the breathing pattern? Because when you have fast breathing here, it just has a fast inhale. And just like if you had a bunch of papers in your passenger seat in your car and you put down the window and you drove, those papers are going to fly out. That's because there is a suction force of air moving fast. So when you have a fast, irregular inhale in your airways at night, it's going to pull those tissues in. So how the heck does changing up your diet impact your breathing? Well, it all has to do with inflammation because every single time you are kind of like stop breathing at night or even you're snoring, oxygen levels go way down and then they go way up. And that big swing in oxygen levels will cause inflammation throughout your entire body. And this will cause a lot of stress, whether it's in your fat cells, your heart, your blood vessels. There's a lot of stress in your body. And whenever you have stress in your body from inflammation, it is going to change your metabolism. And this is why when we talk about stress eating, which I don't know who is the director for these stock photo shoots, but nonetheless, sometimes I do feel like this. And if you do too, that's okay. You're a human. But the point being is when your body gets stressed, there's a reason we reach more for carbohydrates. Think about it, like how often you're like, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm just going to eat a bunch of chicken wings. That's not really a thing. Usually we go for these sugary carbohydrates, and there's a deep metabolic reason that's connected to sleep apnea. So if we actually look at some research literature, boring, sorry, but figured I'd actually bring some substantive evidence as opposed to just having you trust me because I went to medical school, right? That's you should be able to connect the dots that I present to you. That's real knowledge and learning. So here's a study. It's great. And it looks at this vigilant state dependent metabolism. That just means when you are someone who's stressed out, it's going to shift up your metabolism. And I'm going to make this simple. Okay, we're going to make this easy. The darker these circles are, means there's more of these metabolites. And when there are more of them, that means there's usually a back up effect. They're backing out because they can't proceed to the next one. So this is the most important one. Pyruvate. It is not able to enter into the TCA cycle very well when you have sleep apnea. So it's backing up and it's stacking up. That's a huge stinking problem because pyruvate is how glucose will then go into the TCA cycle into your mitochondria to make energy. Even simpler, if pyruvate's hanging out over here, it's not being burned for energy. Now, some of it gets through, but you have to keep eating carbohydrate to make that happen, to kind of push the system and force it to get more pyruvate to make energy inside of your mitochondria. That's the powerhouse of your cell. So this is the big stinking problem. We have this pyruvate pileup. Now, the big problem is when we have pyruvate piling up, that will actually block off the burning of fat. So we effectively lose the ability to burn fat and we're reliant on carbohydrate. And this becomes really unsustainable because then you have to just keep relying on the same thing. And then the more you do that, it will actually deplete the pathways. They become more inefficient. So that's why a lot of times people like they just eat, eat, eat. They don't actually feel full or like they have to keep eating because their body's not actually getting the energy they need from the fuels that they're bringing in. Pretty crazy, and that's also exactly how this ties to our breathing. So this is our mitochondria. It's a being inside of our cell and also the powerhouse of the cell. Hopefully I activated that memory from one point in time. So what happens, whether it's glucose, also fatty acids, carbon dioxide is one of the big products of making energy. So we can't ignore this. Just like your car, yes, it burns fuel, produces energy to move your wheels round and round, allegedly. The big study on the wheels going round and round is still pending. Clinical trial is still coming out. But nonetheless, carbon dioxide and a whole bunch of other stuff is coming out of your tailpipe. It's a byproduct of metabolism. Same exact thing for you. Now, carbon dioxide isn't just sitting around and chilling. It is being used very well because our body likes to waste nothing at all. And carbon dioxide is actually the link between your metabolism and your breathing. And that's because carbon dioxide will be in your blood and it'll go to your spinal cord here. Really, the brainstem and the spinal cord will be exposed to CO2. And the reason this is important is because this is the area of your brain that controls your breathing. So when your CO2 levels over here, as you can see, when your CO2 levels change, it will impact your breathing. And it's not as simple as high or low. I wish it was. It's more like it's all over the place. And then as a result, this causes your body and your brain to sort of have a bad connection in terms of telling your body how much to breathe and what's appropriate. And then at night, you're having a bad or regular breathing pattern, and that causes and triggers the airway to collapse. Not good. Apneas, thumbs down, all around. So the big point here is that when we're looking at metabolic flexibility, the ability to use many different fuel sources, there's really only three, I guess, for the purpose of this discussion. We're too far on the left in sleep apnea. We're over here on glucose side, like this arrow all the way over here. We don't have the ability to burn fats very well, which is a big problem because we're missing a huge part of our diet, but also because the reliance on glucose metabolism leads to this downward spiral. It's very hard to get out of. That's why people get stuck with this for years. So, big point here, bottom line, like install this into some neurons here. Sleep apnea, you lose metabolic flexibility. That's the big imbalance. You're reliant on glucose. And then when you do that, it depletes your glucose pathways, which causes all these nutritional imbalances. But that also shuts off fat burning. We're going to add one, we're going to like bring it up a notch here. Protein. I know that's not very readily apparent from this diagram, but hear me out. So on the left is glucose, on the right is fatty acids. In the middle, I want you to imagine, because it's not on here, there's no real diagram on this that I could find that was approachable. In the middle are protein, because the TCA cycle, which is inside your mitochondria, it will take amino acids and directly use those. So when we don't want to overuse glucose and we can't really use fatty acids, do you think it would be helpful to have a third option available for us? Maybe. Just maybe. Because when you bring those amino acids from dietary protein, like chicken, right? Don't overthink it. That will allow you to offset a lot of these problems because then you're not over relying on glucose. And then that allows fat burning to happen. And it allows your mitochondria to produce energy, which is great. You'll feel better. And also, it produces a good, healthy amount of CO2. So your brain and your body can work together again on when to have a good, steady inhale at night so your airway stays open. So, how you do this is by balancing your macronutrients. And this is like the most overly colorful diagram. I apologize for using this one. Oh my God. Sorry, a lot of times, like my screen, I'll set it to like all red just to, be super healthy. Um, yeah, I'm not going to pick it. We're just going to move past that one because mistakes and imperfections are what make us human. Nonetheless, our big three are reduce burning out our carb burning pathways. We want to allow fat burning to return and get fuel directly into the mitochondria. And that's what we're about to figure out how to do. And that's important because if we go from fast or regular breathing at night to good, slow, steady breathing, then the airway will stay open, or we're removing that trigger because that trigger will either collapse your airway if you have an anatomical narrowing, it will. And even if you don't have an anatomical narrowing, about like 30–40% of people with obstructive sleep apnea actually fall into that category. So, really important. It's also really important to take this moment to realize, wow, I've made some great insights and perhaps I should subscribe. And you're right. If that is your thought, if it isn't, maybe it should be. So go ahead, take your puppy paw, click that subscribe button, whether it's underneath the video on desktop, laptop, mobile, what's the called, tablet, or on your Roku, hit up, up, left, right, select start, and that'll be a cheat code, but I think there's some way to navigate to a menu that you can subscribe. So how do we take our metabolic pathways that are Breaking Bad? See what I did, right? It's not a great pun. Don't reward that behavior. But how do we take our nutrition from falling apart to doing much better? So the first part of this is, and you can write this down, and this will all be in the guide at the end, is being able to have some way to track this because eyeballing this pretty much always falls apart for people. So having some sort of app, MyNet Diary, I'm not sponsored nor affiliated, and I do believe it's free, is a great app to use because we're going to be talking about these macronutrients. And unless like you study this extensively, kind of hard to track things. So the step-by-step process, and I want to be very clear. The first step is the most important one. And if you only do that, maybe like one of these every like 3 years, something like that, make it easy. Because we can talk about like being perfect and like, oh my God, so much overwhelm. But something I'm always talking about with my clients is that it's better that you take action on imperfect things than trying to be perfect and like never doing anything and planning and planning and planning. So if you only do thing one here, I'm proud of you and you're awesome. Okay. And I'll explain it and then I'll have the guide and then I'll make things really easy for you. So step one, you want to set your protein first because that is a thing that will give your glucose pathways a break and start to help fat burning come back online. And what you want to aim for is zero point 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So as example, if you're 150 pounds, you want to go for 120 to 150 grams per day. How the heck do you know this? Well, that's why you got your handy dandy calculator. Okay. And if you have a personal chef, invite me over. I can definitely coach them what to do for the both of us. So just FYI. That's the first big thing. And that's usually a big jump for people. And again, adjusting your protein, talk to your doctor about that. And when people are doing that, again, you don't need to go all the way there. Maybe go halfway, or maybe just go meal by meal, like start with breakfast, increase the protein there, and then gradually go into it. You don't want to have this big shift and be like, oh my God, this was awful. And then like started on Monday and it's done by Friday and forgotten by the next Monday, right? So be gradual with this. And the second step is to then adjust your carbs. Because again, if our carbs are too high, then we're burning out that pathway, blocking fat burning. However, Goldilocks approach here, if it's too low, then we've actually lost our main way in which our body produces fuel and energy. There's a double-edged sword, this carbohydrate pathway with where you are right now. So we want to reduce reliance on it, but not completely take it away. Over time, it may be helpful to go very low carbohydrate for certain amounts of time. I think a ketogenic diet is good every now and then, but just stripping it away can cause a lot of systems to go haywire. So, and it's not no pain, no gain. Let me be very clear on that. Some people can like cut out carbs and just suffer for 2 weeks and nothing really ever changes. So going a little bit lower than you may, all right, around like 100, 150 grams of carbohydrates. And that's kind of across the board what I've seen to be a good set point for people. And if you're way low on that, let's say you're doing keto, but you're just like so tired, go up for a little bit because then you'll get a little bit more of the glucose pathway while the other things can start to heal and adjust. So that's what you go for there. And then kind of a more minute detail. If you're more active, you can stick to the higher end. If you're less active, you can go lower. All right. Then number 3 is to just fill in the gaps with good, healthy fats. Okay. Like not, I can't believe it's not butter and I can't believe it's still legal to sell. But you just want to bring in good, healthy fats like coconut oil, butter. I think avocado oil is great. Things of that nature are going to be fantastic to fill in there. And one of the big things is like these are kind of high level guidelines, right? And the more you like find those little details for yourself, that makes all the difference here. I know this comic says that and representing it, but like really it doesn't. I mean, like it says small changes can make a big difference. And then there's like a guy with a rocket pack. That's not a small change. Anyway, I digress. So have that confidence in yourself that yes, you'll make changes and then you'll make some more changes. That's just the progression that everyone is on. And give yourself some grace because as you go through this, it's never going to be one thing that magically turns everything on. That would be great. However, it's just not the case. Yes, many of the things I'm talking about can make huge differences for some people, but a lot of times people they do something, they get a little bit better like what the heck? I thought that thing was the thing. Well, in reality, there's a lot of different things that are going to affect that one core mechanism of sleep apnea, whether it's direct breathing exercises, myofunctional, like uh, working out your tongue and that sort of stuff, and also these holistic lifestyle changes, including nutrition that we talked about, but can also be stress management, etc. here. So it's all about finding the pieces of your puzzle. All right. So don't feel, oh my God, I did this one thing. And that like just take it step by step. It's all a gradual process, my friend. Okay. And speaking of gradual processes in friendship, the guide that I made for you. Where is this thing? There it is. Okay. So made this balance in sleep apnea guide. I was gonna put nutritional, but it would just take up too much of this little cover here. So there's your graphic. It's not about physical balance, but nutritional balance is. So that'll all be in this guide here for you. You can go ahead and get that. I'll tell you how. And then, of course, you want more help with all the other factors, right? The breathing exercise, myofunctional. That's what the sleep apnea reset protocol can help you do. Really easy video course. Go through it, shows you what to do. You build out sort of a personal protocol for breathing and myofunctional and you pick up some additional holistic lifestyle factors from the bonuses that come with that. So for either of them, if you're super crafty, you can just click the title. That's up if you're on your phone. Then the description box will pop open. If you're on desktop, tablet, or I guess TV, the description box should just be below the video anyway. So navigate yourself there. And I will put the links in there. You just click those and it'll whisk you away. And that's for both the guide and the reset protocol. And for the reset protocol, there is a button with that below I guess it's below the comments here. It's also typically on screen. And then, of course, if you're into links and stuff, because maybe you're watching this on a device, like you got your TV here and you got like your phone in your pocket and your, I don't know, your Wi-Fi dishwasher, whatever, you can enter this right into your dishwasher. These links here, ochnow.com/balance. And then for the reset protocol workshop, ochnow.com/reset and QR codes if you're into that. I know, very comprehensive options and solutions. But do you know what's not an option? Subscribing. I guess it is, but either way, thank you for watching. My name is Dr. Dylan Peckus. Thank you for taking care of your health today, and I'll see you soon.